Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of a running set where we talk with Count Jackula of an alien planet that rhymes with Jackula about horror movies. Jackula, do a better job of introducing yourself than I have.
Greetings, Fright Nights. I am Count Jackula from the planet Dracula, where bad movies stalk the night.
Oh, Count Jackula talks to you like a guy in a sex line.
But anyway, because it is October, we're going to be talking a little bit of the horror, hopefully to keep you up at night listening to your favorite lesbians and your favorite, not really vampire.
Honorary lesbian.
Yes, honorary lesbian vampire. So put that in your podcast and smoke it.
Okay, last time we talked about found footage movies. This time we're talking about slasher movies.
Slasher movies.
This is more well known. The last one was a bit obscure.
Yeah, if you're not really a fan of found footage, you probably haven't encountered it above and beyond Blair Witch, but pretty much everyone knows a slasher movie. So trigger warning, everybody.
Yeah.
But I have to say, because I was a child in the 80s, I was born in 1980 and I grew up through the 80s, that after a certain point of time in the decade, there were very little slumber parties that did not involve a slasher movie. I mean, not like we were slashed and died, but we were watching them.
Yeah, found footage movies today, our slasher movies were from the late 70s until early 90s, and then again with Scream in there a lot.
And probably very few of these
movies. Yeah, they became the
like,
hot thing.
My mother knew that I was watching. Probably the mother who was throwing the party didn't even know we were watching it.
Yeah, well, I think the popularity of a lot of slasher movies and a lot of low-budget direct-to-video horror movies really was like the sleepover, the slumber party, which is why there's one called Slumber Party Massacre.
There's several called Slumber Party Massacre.
Yeah, there are 3 of them.
Yeah.
They're all really good.
You'd think they'd stop having slumber parties.
Is it one of them like a musical parody of the 50s?
Yeah, it's very strange. It has the slasher. The second one is the one that makes the least amount of sense. It's not a badly done movie. You're just like, wait, what's going on? So in that one, the driller killer, not to be confused with the killer from the movie Driller Killer. But, yeah, it gets a little confusing. But the driller killer in that one, for some reason, is a rockabilly greaser with an electric guitar that has a drill on the end of it.
What?
And he sings.
Why not?
Yeah,
what?
because... Yeah, I cannot explain that to you.
Okay.
It makes no sense. It's kind of awesome.
I was just going to suggest that before we begin talking about the big genres, that each of us try to outdo the other ones by naming the most obscure one they can think of.
Y'all are going to win.
Probably.
You want to go first?
Well, see, the thing is that I can't remember because I watched all of these, through the slits of my fingers while, I was a little kid. I remember seeing this one over at Hope Bacon's house that we watched with her. And if you're Hope Bacon, if you still know me after all these years, write the show. That we used to watch with her brother and his friend. And it was these kids in a neighborhood, and there was a creature in the sewer, but for some reason they didn't ever think to actually go in the house, but the creature kept coming out of the sewer and killing them over the course of a weekend when they were camping out in the backyard. And it might have been that's the one with the clown.
Yeah,
I would know that. It's Tim Curry.
What did the monster look like?
It was fuzzy. It was fuzzy, and it was made of it looked like the things from the one where they come out the toilet, but it wasn't. But it looked like them.
Are you talking about Critters?
Yeah, I've seen Critters. It looked kind of like the critter from Critter, but not as well done.
Oh, okay, so it's like a Critters knockoff. Like not even a Gremlins knockoff.
Yeah, I've seen Gremlins. I loved Gremlins because they were fuzzy.
Okay, well...
Okay, never mind, go ahead.
If we work out what that was, then you might win the most obscure one.
If anyone knows what I'm talking about, write the show.
Okay, now Jackula...
Somewhere listening to this right now, like Horror Guru is like, it's this one! It's this one, you moron! How could you forget that one?
Oh. Sorry, Horror Guru.
Now, see, if I have to name really obscure one, there's this lovely... There's this one from 2001 of a crazy Japanese game show called Slashers, which I bought...
Oh, I love that one.
I got it for £1 at a pound shop thinking it'd be terrible.
That was the one I was going to bring up.
And, saying I could mention that one, but I was going to, but then I decided not to, so it's still open for you. I'm going to skip to 13 Women.
Ooh.
This film, which features a woman who is treated horribly by her classmates in university, and so drops out, and then later on decides to get revenge on them by killing every single person who was horrible to her in university, one by one by one by one by one, through nefarious means. This film, it's got all the tropes of the slasher movie, but it doesn't involve any, like, knives or anything, and it was made in the 30s. This woman, she uses hypnosis to make people kill themselves. And it was 1932, I believe, and stars Myrna Loy.
Love Myrna Loy.
And it features the only credit of Peg Entwistle, the woman who killed herself by leaping off the Hollywood sign.
Oh.
So there you go. It's a bit like finding if you come across this film, it's like finding a slash movie 40 years early. It's a mind scramble.
Does it have, like, the big dramatic credits? Starring so-and-so, featuring lead best grip, Joe What's-His-Face.
Nearly, but it's the 30s, so the opening credits are always over the top.
I fucking love that.
And for Jackula, are you going to talk about slashers?
Yes, I'm going to talk about Slashers. Slashers is a movie made, I believe, in 2000.
Roughly.
Roughly, yeah. And the whole idea is that it is a reality show, game show, in Japan, where people compete for a huge amount of money. But the twist is that they're in a studio obstacle course, and they're being constantly tracked by people in costumes who are in fact trying to kill them. And this is all broadcast on air. It's like a show that people watch.
That sounds like it should be a subsection of one of the Saints Row games.
It actually, Saints Row 3 has a game which is pretty much like that, but you've got a rifle and you've got to kill the guys who are trying to kill you.
Well, there you go.
It's Professor Genki's Murder Time Fun Time.
Yep. Some of my favorite segments are the Professor Genki segments.
Yeah, with that one I found it in a pound shop. Sure, it'll be enough, because I will go in there and I will buy a fuckload of.
She will. Oh my gosh! The last time we were there, you have no idea.
I got like 10 movies for £10.
And we had to get a bag because over here, if you have to bring your own bag, and if you don't, you have to pay 5p. And so we're like, "Can we have a bag?" And they were like, "I guess."
But I have to do the same thing. Like San Francisco does the same thing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But Slashers, it was.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. One of the things that's really interesting about that film is that it's all practical effects, and the way they did it, because there are a lot of slow pans to effects where there were no effects before, and the effects are obviously things that require a lot of setup. They had this computer system that would put the camera in the exact position, angle, focus, depth of field, everything. So they had rented this huge space, and they had literally created the set so that anytime they needed to go back, they could control all the lighting and start the camera again from a specific angle so the cuts would be seamless.
Well, that's pretty cool.
That's super cool. And it's really impressive because when you watch it, there are a lot of times when, like, the camera guy will, like, look to the left. There'll be someone the camera guy's looking at. Then there'll be a noise, and he'll look back. Then he'll turn back, and, like, the person's getting their head cut off. And it's an obvious, like, prosthetic. But you're like, whoa, wait, how did they set that up so seamlessly? And they explain in the making of.
Hey, that's pretty neat. I wish I could do that.
It sounds like the midpoint of what Peter Jackson did in Bad Taste and in his early work, where he would just join various things together, people and special effects together. Same sort of thing that The Taint does very well.
Oh yeah, that's true, because you're
Yeah.
slowing it down by frame.
Yeah, but they did it with CGI as well, it was a good mix. But
Right, so I have a hypothesis, because I was actually thinking about this show when I was walking back to class the other day. And so I'm going to test my hypothesis against you guys, because you know more than me, and you see if you agree with me. So slasher films kind of came into their own as a really, really big thing in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the 80s, a lot of people have said that culturally, and not socioeconomically, but at least culturally in the United States, that the 80s were very reminiscent of the 50s. They were a very more conservative time than the 70s or the 90s. And I had this idea that with anything, film is kind of a medium for storytelling. And a lot of the original ideas of horror came from like the old folk tales of, well, you better not go in the woods because they're haunted, and so-and-so went into the woods, and then the Lord came and killed him and stuff like that, so you peasants better not go in the woods and stuff. And eventually these kind of mutated into kind of morality tales. Like, oh, well, you heard about Susie. She stayed out all late with Johnny in his car, and you know what happened? A hookman came for them. So kind of like ways to enforce morality through terror. And so I was thinking about that slasher movies are kind of ways of not using like the old parables, but kind of relying on those tropes to say, Friday the 13th, if you be promiscuous, bad things will happen to you, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, Friday the 13th in particular
that's why I
very much is very much a fairy tale. It's got that basic fairy tale structure, like people go and do this thing that they're not supposed to do despite the warnings of someone that they meet on the way, which is usually an old man. But in a fairy tale would be like a little animal or like an old wizard or something. It's like, whatever you do, don't do this. And the first four kids do it. They do all the bad things that you're not supposed to do, and they get killed or turned inside out forever or something terrorized.
Like the slasher usually is dehumanized. It's not like, oh, this person suffers from mental illness and their mental illness causes them to do XYZ thing. They're kind of almost a force of nature.
Yeah. They're definitely depicted as more of a force of nature. The mental condition of the slasher killer doesn't really come into it as... It's always brought up, but it doesn't really come into it narratively until
like they'll say it's
the 90s.
Quote unquote a crazy slasher, a crazy psychopath.
Yeah. Even a guy like Freddy Krueger, you're like, well, what makes him kill people? Well, he's the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs, or the son of Alice Cooper, depending on which movie you watch.
Honey, your description of slashers basically being the most conservative form of horror and stuff like that, it's very true. That's exactly what they are.
I win. Good theory.
But from your description of those old fairy tales and their comparison with slasher movies, it's got me thinking. Willy Wonka, slasher movie.
Yeah. If the kids actually were being killed, it would essentially be a slasher movie. Because there's nothing that guy doesn't do that you couldn't imagine, like some really bizarre, gory 80s movie doing it the same way.
Oh my gosh. And someone's going to have to do it in a way that doesn't get them sued by Roald Dahl's estate, but someone's got to do that. Put it on YouTube, it'll be gold.
Wonka's more like an actual slasher than, say, Jigsaw from Saw, and Saw movies are generally considered to be slasher movies, even though they're not. A lot of people who don't really care much about the finer points of genre in horror genre, they will lump Saw in there with them. Okay, I kind of want to see like a horror Willy Wonka remake.
Somebody get on that, or at least do some art. We'll put it up for you.
Well, someone like Willy Wonka would be much more in the like John Wayne Gacy kind of vibe, whereas Jigsaw from Saw is much closer to the abominable Dr. Phibes. Because the Phibes movies, in fact, are the great-grandfathers of Saw, because it's essentially the same deal. A man with a personal vendetta sets up traps to kill people he feels has wronged him.
Well, I think that's interesting, because do you think that slashers actually kind of evolved from these kids, didn't obey what they were told, they deserved it, to they personally wronged the slasher, to they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Well, I think they very, very directly evolved from folktales, because how old is the story of, say, Hookman? All you really need is car, guy with hook. So we're talking like the 40s, 50s.
Oh, even earlier than that. It could be as early as the 20s.
Yeah. But it wasn't really a teenage thing.
That's a good point.
That's 40s or 50s.
That's because culturally they weren't teenagers until the 50s.
Yeah, exactly. But like there always have been like campfire stories of, hey, don't go over there because if you go over there, the evil spirit will skin you alive, and then, because you remember, does anyone remember this guy? Oh, well, you weren't around, so let me tell you about him.
And
he went over there and offended the evil spirit, and then he did this. And
our listeners who are too young, go online, and I'm sure you can find this from BarnesandNoble.com, from Amazon.com, The Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, as collected by Alvin Schwartz, and as illustrated by, I cannot remember his name, but he won a Caldecott, and his illustrations are nightmare fuel. But if you can find that, The Treasury, which is all three of the books together, definitely read that, because in his bibliography, he goes into the etymology of every single story. Like, this story came from the South, but we've seen variants as far as Appalachia and things like that.
And the illustrator, very quickly, is Stephen Gamble.
Yes, thank you, Stephen Gamble. He won a Caldecott for The Song and Dance Man, which is a really nice book, but his illustrations are just, they're pure horror to me.
When it comes to the slash movies and their use of being morality plays or being... I'm not entirely sure that they really came into it until the 80s.
Yeah, that was my theory, that when we became culturally in America a little teeny bit more conservative, they became more like that. That's the theory that
they sort of held on to it. I'm not entirely sure that the folktale idea, the slashers coming out of folk tales and sort of being a warning of some sort.
Well, no, honey... Folktales were, and again, reading note, if you can find it online, Sheldon Cashton's The Witch Must Die goes into fairy tales as teaching morality to children of Eastern and Western Europe.
Actually, I can draw a much more direct line.
Ooh, let's see.
Which is back in the 50s, the same structure of the slasher story would exist, but it would usually be, say, like a zombie back from the dead for retribution, or a vampire, some other monster.
Oh, like the EC comics?
Yeah, EC comics, like Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror. But when you get to the 70s, there is an explosion in media attention surrounding serial killers.
Oh, good point.
And so what you've got that same story filtered through the experience of a generation who grew up with a fear of serial killers, who are people, but they are people who are monsters.
And it's so different from now, too, because now we know how serial killers work.
Yeah. The serial killer, the slasher, the serial killer is not as scary as it used to be. Even a movie like Hatchet, which is great. The Hatchet series is fantastic. And it's absolutely like a series in the vein of Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. I really recommend it. But even its horror is tongue-in-cheek. It's not really meant to be taken seriously, whereas in the day, at least the first 4 Friday the 13th movies were meant to be taken very seriously.
Well, if you want a good modern slasher that is meant to be taken seriously, my suggestion would be Wolf Creek.
Wolf Creek is a great example, yes.
Funny story about this. I watched it with some people who work on my show, and I told them it was a slasher movie, so we started watching it, and now Wolf Creek takes between 30 and 40 minutes to get going. It's mostly it's a travelogue for the first half, and then suddenly it's a slasher film. And once it's a slasher film, it doesn't let up.
No, it does not.
So we got in there, and then they were like, "Oh, this is boring. When are they gonna start killing people? What's going on? Oh, it's killing people." And then within 2 minutes of it turning into a slasher film, they demanded I turn it off.
Have you ever seen Storm Warning?
Yes, that's the Australian one.
Yes. Well, I mean, Wolf Creek is Australian too.
Yeah,
Australia in and of itself is horrifying anyway.
There was a lot of there was like a little renaissance of Australian stuff not that long ago.
Yeah, and now it's all moving to Canada. Funny enough.
Odd.
And also, listeners, if you haven't seen Manborg, you should go immediately drop whatever you're doing. Go do it right now. Just saying.
Yeah, I recommend Manborg as well. It's not a slasher movie though.
No, that's awesome.
Not.
But Father's Day.
Father's Day is if you squint. If you squint, it's not set up quite like a normal slasher film, but yeah, if you squint, definitely.
Yeah, that one's notable because that's the one where the script is flipped and it's all about gay guys.
Yeah, and the
them gays.
The guy who plays the Chris Fuckman the Father's Day killer. He's actually
Yeah.
a fan of my show.
Nice. Excellent. That's awesome. So if you're out there watching, you do good work, sir.
So if I ever get around to reviewing Father's Day and we can arrange it, I totally want him to cameo as the fuckman.
Oh my gosh, that'd be really awesome.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be amazing.
But other such ones. Now let me see.
So here's a question that I want to pose to both of you, because you're obviously more versed in the genre than I am. What do you think would be, if you had to pick, I'd say 5 slasher movies based on if you like them or not, their importance to the genre, or, you think that they're the most worthy ones, what would they be?
That's a very hard question to answer because slashers, like found footage movies, there's a lot of them. They're not that hard to make, and generally they're not very good. They're mostly enjoyed ironically.
Okay.
So it's a very hard question.
I actually have the exact polar opposite answer. That is extremely easy for me. In terms of absolute importance, Mike Myers is number 1, followed immediately by Leatherface.
Oh, I thought we were talking
Jason.
about movies. I thought we were talking about movies.
Or the actual slasher something.
Okay, sorry. I misunderstood.
Okay, yeah. I would absolutely say that, like, Michael Myers, Leatherface, Jason, Freddy, and Dr. Fives. Those are the top 5 most influential slasher characters.
Influential isn't really quite the same thing as what I prefer and stuff. So when it comes to like the ongoing like slasher series and stuff, Halloween is respectful because it pretty much codified it. Nightmare on Elm Street, it brought it into the 80s, so it gets all those little things. And with for instance, the Jason films, I don't care for many of them, but I really love Jason X, and I like Friday the 13th Part 3. When it comes to film by film, the best slasher series, this is going to be really controversial among a lot of people, but as far as I can tell, the best slasher series, rating-wise, is probably Child's Play. Because 1 and 2 are good, 3 is terrible, 4 and 5 are great, and 6 is still great. Are you going to yell at me for that, Jackula?
Oh, no, I'm not gonna, no, that's horrible. That's the worst thing ever. It's a damn puppet. Like, how can you be afraid of a puppet? You just like, kick it.
Oh my gosh. I had a friend who went out to see Child's Play, and she invited me to go with. My mom found out and said no. And then another friend of mine had, and if you're not an American from a certain time, you won't remember this. There was a toy called My Buddy. And My Buddy looks like a good version of Chucky. There was My Buddy and there was Kid Sister, and they were life-size.
Oh, it's a good guy doll.
My buddy.
Yeah. But,
my buddy and me.
My buddy and me. But, so, we pranked her a lot with it, because she would not go near my friend's My Buddy after that. It's evil! No, it's not. Shut up. You're just stupid.
Oh, how can you think my buddy is evil? He's cute. He's cuddly. He's your buddy,
I think the same company made the monster, too.
Teddy Ruxpin, that was
Ruxpin
just disturbing.
Was possessed by the devil. I think there was the same company that made My Pet Monster, which is another toy that I begged for and was not allowed to have. Just saying. Noggin's like, whatever, Americans.
Not quite reacting like that. I will say, in another, complete tangent, that a lot of the Hellraiser films are bad, and they're only really tangentially slasher films.
See, I wasn't sure if they counted.
I'd actually say that the first 2 are extremely excellent, and then they just go completely downhill from there.
See,
there is a bump in the road in some of those direct-to-video ones where you're like, hey, that was not that awful. And then it immediately just goes back into craptitude. What I actually think is very funny about those Hellraiser direct-to-video sequels is in all of them, there is always a character who is an analog of Clive Barker himself.
I had not noticed that.
Yeah, go back and watch them. There is always a character that is obviously intended to be Clive Barker.
Now, how many of them actually were there?
9 or 10.
Good Lord.
Yeah, a lot of them. I don't think I've seen them all. I've seen a lot of them.
I have all of them. And unfortunately, there's never going to be like a box set of all of them because different people own the rights to different numbers from them. And
I
all.
think it was Dimension that did the most recent one, right? The one that doesn't have Doug Bradley in it.
Yeah, and we know what's weird about that? That is the best Hellraiser film since 5. 5 was the best since 2.
Which one was 5? Was that the one where Shersky comes back?
No. The one with the cop who discovers he's in purgatory. Or he's in hell.
Oh God, I actually hated that one.
Oh no.
Bent my brain. I was like, you gotta, actually, I mean, now granted, it's no Deader. Like, I think Deader is like absolutely the bottom of the fucking barrel. It's got one scene where I'm like, hey, this actually feels like a Hellraiser movie, which is the train filled with dead fetish zombies. Like, that felt like Hellraiser. But everything else is just like, oh God, this is such a slog.
If I was given the chance to direct or take control of a horror franchise, it would be Hellraiser, because I have a brilliant idea for a Hellraiser movie, which is like, it would be like a giant cosmic apology for 4, where it would be set, basically remake Aliens, but the colony, has someone who has the lament configuration and opens it up, and so opens the portway to hell, and you got Cenobites take over the entire colony and turn everyone into Cenobites and kill them and torch them, and then military come in.
Technically be Doom.
A little bit, yeah, but set it up like, imagine Aliens with Cenobites instead of aliens.
Yeah, although, God, there have been so many problems with the remake of Hellraiser. They can never get it off the ground, although the guy that did Martyrs, one of my favorite horror movies, definitely the one that upset me the most, was at one point attached to remake Hellraiser, and he had a meeting with Clive Barker, because Clive Barker, the way the contract worked is Clive Barker is the only person who is allowed to suggest a director. But then the studio has to approve the director. That's the way that works. So he's like, I want this guy. And the idea that the director pitched to Clive Barker was essentially this. Okay, Clive, you wrote The Hellbound Heart, and it's very obvious that this is not a story about a girl. This is about a gay love triangle. You changed the gender because you had to. I'm going to do it the way you intended. I want it to be a gay love story, and I want it to be set in a bondage scene. Clive Barker heard that and was like, you're my guy. You're my guy. You're going to do it. I'm going to produce it. You're going to direct it. We're going to film this. We're going to make it happen. And he met with the studio, and he then said, that's it. I'm not doing this. And then they were going to get the directors who did the movie Inside, another pair of French directors. And they were like, well, what do you want to do? And they were describing what they wanted to do. And Clive Barker was like, stop. I like you. I think we can do this. This is a great take on Hellraiser. I don't know what that take actually was. Let's go meet the studio and just get this greenlit. And then they meet with the studio, and then they're like, no, we're not going to do this after all. So it's very obviously happening is that someone at that studio has a brilliant idea, quote unquote, and they want to see that idea happen. Because this has all the earmarks of, oh, wow, no, the studio wants something specific and they're not going to greenlight anyone who doesn't want to toe the studio line, which is really sad because it sounds like we missed out on one of 2 great movies.
Well, does that happen often? Like, I mean, even like in the slasher genre, you think that people be like, there's a bad guy, good enough.
The people who have the most power in film are generally the ones who should have the least.
Oh.
Yeah. There are some studios that are like really good. Like they're really like, yeah, Mr. Director, whatever you want to do. Like the people Lucky McGee works with generally. Like they tend to be like, yeah, whatever. You know, here, have money. We let us write you another check. You know, like they're cool. They're really good. They're good studio execs. You know, they know what they're doing and they're really on top of it. But the problem is like just like in Hollywood in general, it's not that these people are evil, although evil people exist. It's that for the most part, people just don't know good from bad.
Yeah, and the slashers are a genre that constantly make money, and they go in and out of fashion, and they're cheap to make, so they're constantly getting made, but they're embarrassing for a studio. Imagine like BBC in the 80s with Doctor Who.
Oh, okay.
studios, like New Line made its name and made its money in the 80s because of slasher movies. And then it
was the house of Freddy built.
And then they, didn't they end up selling the rights? Because in the end they were just like, fuck it, we don't want to do this anymore.
Well, I believe they ended up closing down because they were like, well, we don't want to be the house that Freddy built anymore, and then they started losing money. It's one of those things where, like, Lionsgate right now is basically doing the, like, well, we have the Hunger Games, we don't have to be, the horror house anymore, and so they're not. But as a result, I'm like, Hunger Games is going to end next year. Like, you're going to be in trouble because no one knows what you're going to be doing after that. And Legendary Pictures is kind of stealing up all your old thunder. I
find it baffling. I hate to say this. If only like one of these studios, could get a boss guy who could act a bit like Lloyd Kaufman, in that he realizes what their studio is built on, and he, don't want to say panders to it, but he lives up to it.
Yeah, I would agree that Kaufman is one of those studio director guys that really, he doesn't get everything, but you can't say he doesn't take his ideas all the way.
This is true. This is very true. Having met him at that one convention, this is very true.
He's a great guy. I've always loved hanging out with him. He's so great.
I said, we have a friend who has an internet radio show, and could I get you to do a bumper for it? He's like, yeah, sure, let me get Doxy over here. What's it called? Oh, it's called Radio to Dare. Okay, so the Dead radio show, you should totally listen.
The shortest song was like 40 seconds.
He just goes on for 5 minutes. I sent everything to Nash. I was like, here you go. It's so great.
But when it comes to Hellraiser films, the best Hellraiser movie I've seen since 1 and 2 is not a Hellraiser movie, and it's called Necromentia. And
I've never seen that.
Oh, it is so good. Have you seen my Where the Dead Go to Die review?
Yes.
You know the bit with the fat guy with the pig mask singing about suicide?
Yes.
That's from Necromentia.
That's Necromentia? Okay, I gotta find that movie. Because ever since you showed me that clip, I'm like, well, I gotta see this movie.
It is basically a redneck Hellraiser. Hellraiser 1.
Nice. That sounds great.
But, skipping over to Freddy, I don't like horror remakes. If you've got a long-running series that has got a constant fan base and stuff, rather than remake it and give it a bigger budget and make it glossy, why not just do a sequel that's disconnected and make it glossy and bigger budget? Because as far as I can tell, the record with remakes is they're usually terrible. However, if you wait a while and do a sequel that might be a remake or might just be a sequel like Child's Play did, like Hellraiser did, they tend to be better. Because they're not reestablishing it, they're just trying
I don't know if I'd say some of those Hellraiser sequels were better than
No, I'm talking
remakes.
about Revelation. The last one. The non-Doug Bradley one. It was much better than it had any right to be.
I have to actually watch it before I can agree or disagree with that. That's one I haven't seen.
I was surprised by how not bad it was. Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I was really, really enjoying it until about halfway through, because I got the feeling they were doing something interesting and they were going to make Freddy innocent of the crimes that he was accused of, making his anger righteous.
That's absolutely the way they should have gone. They should have made Freddy absolutely innocent, but he's still evil anyway just because he's so vengeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that absolutely is the way it should have gone. And here's the thing.
It's like,
that was the script.
We're teasing something to make it really interesting and stuff that's different than you've seen before, and then, oh no, what a surprise, it's just like it was before.
Yeah, the story behind the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is really aggravating, because here's what happened. They had a script, and in the script, Freddy was innocent, that was the twist. And the director did not want to do the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, but he didn't want to not do it because he's like, I don't want to remake Nightmare on Elm Street. That movie's perfect. He's like, well, I don't want to do a horror movie. But he had been bugging Platinum Dunes, aka Michael Bay, to give him work. And Michael Bay is like, look, this is the movie I'm giving you. You need to do this because this is how you make a name for yourself. Do the goddamn movie and do it now. Otherwise, I'm going to stop calling you and stop offering you anything. Womp womp. So the guy makes the movie, but he comes in, and something he said, that I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. The director said this? That's insane. He's basically like, scripts are overrated. I'm not going to use a script. So
because nothing could possibly go wrong there.
Yeah, nothing could possibly go wrong. And so he had this script that he refused to use. And that's the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Was he solidly punished for his hubris?
According
what
to
has he done
IMDb,
since?
I don't know. You guys know these people. I don't know.
He's done 2 shorts and a music video.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, basically he went back where he came from.
Just goes to
as I like to say, like, there is apparently the conversation between him and Michael Bay is apparently legendary, because Michael Bay sent him apparently like a 3-page email, which is, I like to describe it, is called Michael Bay is very, very, very disappointed in you. And if
With
Michael
explosions.
Bay is, and if Michael Bay is very disappointed in you, that means you have really fucked up.
That's quotable. The thing is that we are coming up to the end of this segment, so I'm going to have to talk us out. So, Jack, if people don't know you, and if you don't know Jack, you should know Jack, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on www.thecountjaculashow.com, and starting October 10th, you can find me on thatguywiththeglasses.com, or, if we're all lucky, the new channelawesome.com.
Oh, right.
We'll be on the site one way or the other.
If it ever comes up.
Don't curse it. So, honey, what did we watch this week?
Well, we watched the next episode, which was The Caretaker, which, like I predicted, was a cross between The Lodger and the School Reunion, directed like an episode of The Sturgeon Adventures.
Meh. I was not very enthused with this episode. I'm going to get that right up there.
Oh, we're doing complete inversion because I'm going to be broadly positive to it.
Let me quantify that. Peter Capaldi was great, as usual. I mean, I'd read online that this wasn't a very good episode, but he really saved it, and I agree with that aspect. That is very true. Jesus Christ, you could have done without the goddamn drama. Like, I'm really, really, really starting to resent Clara. I'm like, where do you get off talking like that to the doctor, mouthing off like that to the doctor? All the other companions from back in the day, the doctor would be like, there's a thing, and it's important that you do this. And they'll be like, okay, doctor, sure, I'm just going to go do this thing you told me to. She's like, nuh-uh, I got to get all in your business and be obnoxious. And I'm like, really, honey? Really? Jesus. You're supposed to be in awe of the doctor. You're supposed to do what he says because he's the NPC and you're not.
Not all companions reacted like that. Did you recall Six and Perry's interactions?
Yeah, but Perry was awesome. Like, Perry wasn't a bitch. Like, I don't know how to say it. I'm not trying, please believe me, I'm not trying to be misogynist, but Perry did not be a bitch about it.
But Tegan did the same sort of thing. Since the start, there's been companions who would yell at the doctor and argue with him.
They didn't do it in the snotty kind of way that Clara does. I really can't quantify that. You'd have to take my word on it.
Fair enough. But when it comes to the drama stuff, I was fine with there not being very much of a monster because, frankly, the monster was terrible.
Yeah, it was like, why is this robot here? Oh, just because.
It's interchangeable with any other type of one, so I really didn't care. It was interesting. The writer said that one of the problems, because the last one he wrote was Closing Time, the one with the Cybermen in the mall.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he said the main problem with that one was that there was too much monster. When you're doing one which is supposed to be the Doctor in regular surroundings, drama stuff, you don't want a monster that's too recognizable or too noticeable or too much. So that's why they said they were going to cut down the monster, make it not a recurring monster, just make it very generic, because it's not supposed to overshadow the drama.
Okay, I can see that.
So whatever your issue with it is fine, but they were going for that deliberately.
I see, if she had been honest with him and listened, this whole thing could have been avoided. Although I did kind of like that the doctor was like, I totally approve of your boyfriend, when he thought it was the teacher that looks kind of like Matt Smith. There's a little bit of hubris there, and I appreciated that.
I was fine with that as well, even me.
Even you?
The master of the Doctor is asexual, motherfuckers. Brigade.
Well, the doctor can have an interest in Clara that's not sexual. Like I said, he's like a little kid. You know, when his big sister has a boyfriend. You're supposed to be paying attention to me. It's us doing stuff, not you and this guy. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I was just saying the asexual thing is just, even me who views the Doctor strictly like that, I have no problem with him being all like, oh, Clara's off with someone who looks just like I did. You know, that's an example of the Doctor's...
yeah, because, like, I'm not your boyfriend. He's just like, I know, but he's thinking, like, but other me could have been. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, the Doctor, beyond everything else, is incredibly full of himself.
Oh, this is certainly very true.
I'm going to say this. I tweeted about one scene in this which I really liked. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this in a Toddy Who review or anything, but as far as I'm concerned, Doctor Who, I do not like them doing the same kind of stories over and over again, even though different eras have the different stories they do, like Troughton's one, Base Under Siege. All throughout this thing, you got your early Tom Baker, they're like doing pastiches of usually Gothic literature and stuff like that. One thing I really wish the series would work out is, like, since you can go anywhere or anywhen, you can do any genre of story. Why not do like an episode set in the far future and it's a court drama? The Doctor breaks some sort of law and you get a court drama set in the future with aliens. You could do one episode like that, and then the next episode they could be in ancient Egypt doing some sort of crazy thing like dodging crocodiles. There is so much scope for the types of stories you can tell in Doctor Who that people ignore. And in Doctor Who, one of the things about New Who that really bothers me, and in a lot of Old Who, is that they'll go into the past on Earth and there's an alien there and they've got to deal with them. And it's like, there is enough interesting stuff without inventing random crappy aliens and sticking them in there. I want like pure historicals, and I'd like future ones that are not just about like a monster. It's like alien races doing shit. You can do space opera. You could do like a horror story set with a crew, with a animalistic alien, like predator that's going to kill them. You could do like my idea for the court drama. You could do anything genre-wise, but they choose not to.
Oh, we keep coming back to London, the modern day.
At least in this one, they were trying to do a relationship drama, like it was set up a little bit like a French farce of people misunderstanding other things, and it was 90% not a traditional Doctor Who story, which I liked because they were taking a baby step towards doing something different.
Okay, maybe I have issues. I don't understand why there's always this kind of like Shakespearean-esque dance around who, Clara's like, oh, I can't tell you who I'm dating, oh, except for I can, oh, except for I can't. I can't tell you about the Doctor, except for I can, except for I can't. I'm like, if you'd just been honest, all of this could have been avoided.
Well, I got the feeling that if you were running off to have adventures with the Doctor, then if you told people about it, then A, they wouldn't believe you, B, they'd think you're lying, or C, they'd think you're insane.
No, but if she'd have told the Doctor,
oh, okay,
that can listen about Pink. And so then the Doctor would be like, oh, well, gee, we don't want to cause a big, huge paradox like we almost nearly did. Then I think that he would be more open because, she wants him to approve of Pink, saying, oh, by the way, I time travel. Yeah, you're right, you're out of your mind. No, see, here's the time travel ship. Why don't you come inside? Look, it's bigger on the inside.
Well, another problem with Listen that we didn't actually point out was, in Doctor Who, you're not supposed to touch your younger self, yet the Doctor deliberately was taking Clara back to her younger self so we could uncover the dream.
Yeah, that's true. I mentioned that because I said Rose makes eye contact with herself, her other self, and it created a pocket dimension with huge demons. And so they're actually going back into Clara's time. So the Doctor's like, yeah, whatever, it'll probably be fine.
Yeah, Doctor's being stupid in that case. In the Caretaker, there was the one scene that I really loved was Pink and the Doctor yelling at each other in the TARDIS, because in that scene, the show got the Doctor's character more than any episode of New Who ever.
Explain.
The Doctor is an aristocrat. The Doctor is arrogant. The only reason the Doctor is listened to is because he's so self-assured that he is going right and he is going to be listened to. It's like a superpower he's got the superpower of confidence that can only come from being the aristocracy of the most powerful planet in the universe.
That's true. It's like Time Lords, huh? He's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, you guys are like basically space Romans.
The Doctor attempts, especially in New Who, he attempts to be like working class. He attempts to be all sort of humble and talk about how everyone's important, no one's not important. But
lots of places have a north.
It's a show. The guy, even whenever he's like saying like, I hate people who say little people because everyone's important and gigantic. You're all giants to me. It's like what he's doing there is he's putting on a show of saying, I'm so much more humble than you, motherfucker. I will show you fucking humbleness. The guy, he can turn being humble into arrogance. He is amazingly arrogant, and that's an integral part of the character. You can remove the Doctor's
but I don't see why Pink freaked the fuck out the way he did. He just suddenly freaked the fuck out, and I'm like, why are you freaking the fuck out? I said aloud.
Working class guy who's been in the army. Officers in the UK army generally tend to be nobility or at least well off.
Don't take this the wrong way. He probably wasn't a very good soldier with an attitude like that.
Well, he's out of the army, so he can say it.
Yeah, Yeah, I guess, but I'm like, seriously, why are you freaking the fuck out?
He was bringing his own baggage to the scene as well.
Pretty much.
But
see, that's what this issue was. This episode was all about everybody else's issues. It was about the doctor's issues, about Claire's. Everyone had goddamn issues except for the little juvenile delinquent child. There
was a nice little subtle bit, because in the Fifth Doctor era, the Doctor discovers that the Brigadier, after retiring from the army, became a math teacher, and he can't believe it. That a soldier became...
Is that why he couldn't believing that Pink taught math?
That's what inspired it.
That's kind of cool, I guess.
But
nice little homage.
Yeah, although the Doctor accepted it quicker because A, he knew the Brigadier, and B, this is probably like a bit of subtext, the Brigadier was an officer. In the British Army, the idea is that, okay, it was dealing with stereotypes in the UK, some horrible stereotypes here, and one of them is that common soldiers in the UK are working class and they tend not to be very smart. That's a stereotype. And
well, honey, that's not just a stereotype anywhere. Like the US, that's why soldiers are called grunts. You know, and that's born with a matter of pride. Like, yeah, we do what we're told. You know, we go do things and stuff. We're the ones that carry you out of the burning building. We're not hired to do thinking. We're just grunts, but that's what we do best. It's a point of pride in the U.S. I don't know if it's different in the U.K.
It's probably similar, but
if you are any of our listeners, I know there's a few. If you have been in the military and I am incorrect, please comment and let me know.
But the thing about the Doctor's arrogance, it is born out of being an aristocrat, and this is why you can get rid of the Doctor's, you can change the Doctor's sex, you can change the Doctor's skin color, you can change his ethnicity. That's all fine. What you can't change, he's got to be British, and he's got to be the type of arrogant twattery that the Doctor does.
Arrogant twattery, I love that.
Is born from being an aristocrat, a British aristocrat. It's a very particular thing. That's why I'm perfectly fine with black doctors, with woman doctor, with anything like that. My personal choice for the 11th and 12th Doctor was Alexander Siddig, who is half Sudanese.
I love him.
Yeah, he'd be brilliant, but he's got to be British. The only bit of Capaldi that's really jarring to me, and this is something that's been jarring to me with several of the Doctors, like most of the Doctors recently, is his accent, not the Scottish part. The Glaswegian part, because Glaswegian is a very working class accent.
But isn't that Capaldi's actual accent? Is he from Glasgow?
Yeah, it is. With Capaldi, I think that they've just decided to keep it because it's his own accent.
And basically, who wants to take him on in a fight? Like apparently Stephen Moffat's afraid of him or something.
With some other Doctors, I can see your point, but with Capaldi, because Glaswegian has a reputation of being hard to understand, even in the UK. So if they were trying to make it his accent, for the benefit of international people, that's a massive own goal. But my issue, it's a minor issue. I've had similar issues with Doctors 9, 10, and to a minor extent 11. It's just the regionalization of the show. And I don't think that the characters should be regionalized accent-wise. Except, you can regionalize it, just don't working class it. Because characters not working class, and that is totally claiming other people's identity, and which doesn't fit the character. I don't like it.
Doctor, cultural appropriation.
That's it.
I'm telling Tumblr.
It's class appropriation. This is my main issue with the Ninth Doctor. It's not just his accent. Every single bit of his attitude, his costuming, the way he's written is to be very working class. And it is completely, to me, this is an aristocrat who knows he's got money stashed away, pretending to be working class, pretending to suffer the same indignities of people who have less money and who have less security, just because he can.
He's slumming it.
And I found it
maybe it was because of the Time War for 9. He kind of got all shook up.
It's possibly wanted like a holiday from himself or something. 10 was a little bit less like that. He was a little bit more like Mockney is like imitation Cockney, sort of an Essex accent, and a lot of people who come from upper backgrounds have taken to using that accent. People like Guy Ritchie, Jimmy Oliver, and stuff. It's usually affected. So 10, it makes sense.
I don't like Jamie Oliver. I think he bullies poor people.
It's possible, but his kind of accent makes sense culturally in year 2006 whenever he was cast, even though David Tennant's actually Scottish. Matt Smith, his accent is from Northampton, but
I don't know where that is.
Northampton his was the least disagreeable of those three accents, I felt.
Okay.
Matt Smith is probably the most doctorish of all the accents of the New Who series, except for John Hurt, and I fucking refuse to accept that doctor exists.
But it's still John Hurt, though. He was born an old man. I mean, it was an okay episode. I'd rather get back to the space opera, please. A lot less of everybody's goddamn issues. We're not your therapist, Clara. You need to get over it.
Doctor Who's not really a space opera, though.
I know. I just wanted more sci-fi, less faffing about. Maybe I saw it when I got back from statistics class, so I was already, like, in a logical, numerical frame of mind.
Well, I'm not saying it's a perfect episode. I just appreciated some parts of it.
Yeah. But, I hate
yeah.
to cut us short, though we did go over long with our good friend, the Count. But my final thoughts was, it had good parts, it had bad parts, and didn't like it as much as the last one.
Sum up by saying that for all of his good points, the Doctor is a complete, massive, horribly arrogant aristocrat, and it is whitewashing to remove those faults from the character when they've been there since day one. So thank you to this episode for bringing them to the fore.
Yay! Hagan actually likes something. Quickly, everyone, write it down in your notebooks. There will be a test later. But, moving on to the part of the show that we couldn't get rid of, even though we desperately tried. It's Giovanni's trivia question. And Giovanni, are you here with us today?
Yeah, boss, here I am. I was just chilling out, playing some video games. How are you all, my adoring radio public tonight?
We're alive.
Well, that's exactly what you said last time, so, I
dead.
guess that you're obviously lying to me now.
Larg brains.
So, it was narrow this week. We had two answers within minutes of each other, but so it was the Cork, that wily of Germans, who knew the secret about Ben and Jerry, the fact that no one actually taught them how to make ice cream. They learned from a correspondence course from Penn State University. Yeah, they sent money and learned how to make ice cream. And thus a revolution in sweetness was born. So, the Cork, you again are my favorite mammal, but I got a little one this week that I don't think you're gonna get. So, Hawaiian Punch. You know, Hawaiian Punch, that little, mascot with the horns. It's got that moose thing going on. I don't really sure what that's about, but that red fruit-flavored drink, we all know when it was developed, but what was its original purpose? What was Fruit Punch originally developed as, and it wasn't a fruit drink? So if you know that, when this goes up on Blip, be the first person to tweet at the Omega, that's at the Omega Geek, and tell her the answer, and you will be my favorite mammal for this week. But for now, I'll just be Giovanni signing off, saying goodbye, all my adoring radio public.
But anyway, that takes us to the end of the show for this week, and I have been the Omega, and who would you have want to have been this week?
Rayford Steele.
Ooh.
Character from Left Behind.
Captain Steele.
Yeah.